Hi, it's Christmas from Airwindows, and today you are getting Console H. Here it is. So this might look a little bit weird. We've got a whole bunch of different controls and things, and I've really kind of been wrestling with it because what I've done is try to show all of the controls on screen at the same time, and that's posed some problems for me as far as setting up. In fact, I did an initial take only to discover that I had the 2-bus set up weird. See, here is the 2-bus right here. In fact, I can show you how big the 2-bus is by opening the window up and making it be a lot bigger. And you can do this. This is meant to be a big sounding 80s sort of thing. Next thing I'm going to do is walk through this and show you what all this stuff sounds like without Console H. And then we're going to get into hip-hop style instrumentation. But here's your start. We've got the whole console setup, meaning all of these channels with lots of controls on them, which I am using to the max. And then they run into the bus, and you get this meter, which is showing you the tone colors of everything that you're mixing, combined with the zero cross measurement and the clipping measurement, which is down here, and also this knob, which is a 2-bus pan adjustment, will blink for stuff that is excessively loud. And you can just play it, set it up any way you like, adjust the size of it if you like, or I need to rearrange it. Could be a different layout. So we're going to move this over here for the moment. And let's start looking at some of these tracks. Here's what I'm doing with the guitar. You see the guitar over here, and in fact I should be able to switch it out so that you can see everything about it. So here's how this stuff works. Trim is a sort of input gain level. More is like tape saturation kind of stuff. So you can do a kind of overdrive that way. We've got a low pass and high pass, but these are like speaker cabinet adjustments. So it has a very different sound. Oh, we have not turned off the clavinet. I'm turning that off now. And we've got these simple EQs. You see that I've pulled the mid back a tiny bit, and I'm adding high and I'm adding low. And then we have the compressor and gate. I'll show you more about that on the drum track. And then fader is sitting actually quite low. Pan does this. If you're entirely on the left, it will light up in green. If you're entirely on the right, it will light up in red, as a sort of hint if you're looking at a bunch of these as to where you're looking for things in the stereo picture and which control is going to do it. Now you might notice this up here, and crossfade brings this into play. The way this is laid out has a crush control being the largest control, and then we've got these. This is hip crush, but in 4 bands. So you got a sweepable frequency control for each of these, and then it brings in the sound pretty quickly but then it narrows and intensifies it. So this is sort of full rangey, and then it gets very tight. And then what Crush does is this. Crush is bit crushing, but it runs like Hip Crush runs. So that will give you a sort of flavored version of bit crushing if you want one. And that brings in, to the left, it brings in a starved version. To the right, it brings in a compressive version, which blasts at full time even if you have stopped the playback. And that's what Crush does when you turn it all the way up with that setting. Each of these, they're color-coded in the same way that SSL consoles are, will do the same thing. Like for instance, here's Bass Crush. And there's a guitar reverb in there, and then it's being taken over by the background noise. But if you don't have it on Compress Crush, it shuts off. And that is what Hip Crush does. And you can blend Hip Crush with the raw sound from low, mid, and high. So that's another thing you can do for making interesting sounds. Or you can have the crushes set in the middle, and then it becomes just kind of weird narrow band stuff. This is basically what you do for getting into weird bit crushy type things, as you incorporate all this stuff. So what we can do here is, let's stop this. We've got something turned really up very loud, and I'm pretty sure it is this one. Oh, I know what it is. I turned 808 kick on, so don't mind me. I didn't mean to do that. This is all crammed into a really tiny space. So here is, we'll shut off the guitar. Here's the bass. Let's shrink the bass up into a tiny corner. See, there we are. There, that's my bass. This is what the bass sounds like without, and then with. So actually, I will hide that. And let's play with just only this drum kit. I've now only got the drum kit playing. And we're going to expand this until we can kind of tell what we're doing. So here's just drums. And then this is what you get out of it. So you might notice the fact that I'm doing stuff with compression and gating. So here is one of the things that I'm doing with gating. I have highlighted this little front to kick mic. It is I'm pretty sure this is a floor mic, and it's in front of the kick drum, but not actually inside it. So it's picking up certain things, but it's highlighting the kick. What I'm doing with this, and I can turn it up more so that we can be sure to hear it. And same deal with the pan and stuff, like hard left, hard right. It'll light up different colors to show you what that thing in the mix is doing. here's what we're doing. The compression acts like this. Or we'll let it start up again. You can get really aggressive sounds out of this compressor. Attack is going to largely manage, and you notice that I have no mids on this and mostly lows. If I take that out, this is what the drum actually sounded like. I'm not doing much with more. I am doing a certain amount of overdrive here on the trim control. See, without it, it's just not as loud. So I engage first one, and then 2 steps of trim. I could go even harder. And then the compressor, you can push it to the absolute extreme, but what I'd like to do is fool with this so that I can show how attack and release work on this one track. If the attack is really slow, the front end of the percussion pokes through. And you speed it up. Exaggerate it more. And we can get it acting really aggressive, especially if we speed up the release as well. So check this out. Now we have an attack and a very fast release, so the release is bouncing back up. And we get to dial in this exaggerated artificial attack. And then we'll be able to hear what it sounds like as the attack really speeds up. We can get an extremely aggressive, distorted tone. And it's squishing the heck out of the entire track. So yeah, dial that back down, only to discover that we can do gate as well. You need to have the release be a little quicker for the gate to work. This is how I got the sound out of that original track, which is somewhat exaggerated. I had the attack just slow enough that I got some attack off of it, and then I speeded up the release until it cut off all of the cymbals and things. And I ended up using it only to reinforce the lows on the drums. To do this kind of thing with it. You notice that the gate is so high, you see it engaging, lighting up when it's shutting the sound off. And then what we can do is start slowing the release down, and we'll start hearing the gate's release slow down too. And we can minimize the compression, or we can start pushing it more. And I was going for something kind of like this, and then include the actual drum part, which is handling things differently. This one is not gating, but this one also doesn't have the lows on it, because I'm doing a sort of 80s style Mutt Lange thing going on. And so what we've got here is a different kind of thing. We've got some highs, We're not doing low passing or high passing here. And we're pulling a little of the lows out, and we're letting it compress. If I push the compression as hard as it could go, we'd start getting something like this. And that's basically how I dialed in the settings for attack and release on this. Is I wanted it to have the right kind of attack and be able to swish everything neatly. Slow it down, and we start getting an initial spike on the compressor. And then if we dial the compression back, it's the same behavior, and I'm designing it to work with just the reinforcement, which is simply another microphone, but it's focusing on only the lows of the kick. And that's how I dialed in this sound for a rock style track. But again, what if you didn't want that? Let's put away these, move this meter out of the way, even as much as that, because looky here. Assuming I haven't screwed up the settings on this one. It looks like maybe I have, but I'll put them back. This is an 808 kick sound. See, it starts out doing this, and we're going to dial it into something that's interesting. So I've probably got it just suppressed too much. And what I'm doing with that is abusing the compression and gating again. So let's assume we don't want our 808 kick to be this weird thing. And I bet I know why it's doing that. Check this out. I accidentally turned crossfade up all the way. Here's what you have when you don't have crossfade turned up all the way. I also appear to have something set wrong. It's not crossfade. Something is very distorted. Maybe it's simply... Okay, there we go. All I was doing was hammering everything with that 808 kick too hard, so it was distorting the bus. Don't mind me. We'll figure this out. See, here's the bus. And I can probably turn some of these things down. Pull that back. If I mute the bass, I've got this. That's the kick again. Okay, here we go. Here's the bass. So I can turn kick down. Turn it up, but what I'm doing here is probably coloring and tailoring it too much, because remember, this is what it started out as. So what are we doing with this? Well, among the things I'm doing with it is I have that graphic thing going on, but don't mind me. One of the things I'm keeping an eye out on for this is I'm trying to watch where the attack sits. And I'll tell you why. Because I was trying to mix it together with some of these other things, like hopefully this is still working. Here is a 808 hat and an 808 clap. And I can do the same stuff with these. Oh, I have just turned it up somehow. Oh, I know why. I'm trying to adjust the size of these and I'm inadvertently clicking fader. Don't mind me. I'll figure this out somehow. First things first. Let's resize this and hopefully not click fader too much. And let's resize this, which won't be clicking fader because it's not the same size. And now we're looking at this mix and the bus plugin. And I can use fader to turn those things down. And then we can start trying to set this up. So here's where my kick sits. And my intention with it was as follows. You can see on the master track, if I have it turned down enough, you see a little spike, and that is the high frequency peak in this. Then as we bring other things in, it's showing up also on the peak meter on the output. This is your bus meter. And you can see where it distorts. We don't have to distort, but it's able to hit the peaks fairly loud. We can bring in those hats. And now we've got it constructed into a sound where if you included other things, like for instance, a weird synthesizer, it'll kind of come together into something. So the thing that I was telling you about with the kick is that if I make the kick clip, it'll distort those low frequencies down here. And what we're seeing up top is that the bass, which is showing up as a blue dot, is some of the loudest stuff that you can hear. But we're no longer picking up on what that click is doing. Whereas you pull it back, and I can even mute this again, you get to see where the click is hitting, but also how bright it is. So when you're doing this kind of thing, if you were mixing to not just distort everything, but you want all of your stuff to come across as loud as possible, what you want to do is bring things in. See, there's the hat. It was showing up a little bit lower. If its peaks were up to here, then that would be both a bright and a loud hat, and I can turn it up a little bit. And see, now we've got that and its brightness all sitting up in the top 6 dB. The way this works is on this side you've got the dB markings, and on this side you've got the zero cross markings. The zero cross markings have to do with low frequency sounds. So I've dialed this one in so that its low frequencies are being affected by the high pass filter. See, this is moving up here and we can see it doing its thing. And if I scooch this over, you can see a little bit more of it. In fact, I'll bring it all the way over so we can see it spotlighting just only the kick. This is only the kick channel. The blue stuff down here is what the zero cross meter is showing. And these are the indications for what frequencies the zero cross is doing. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing with that. See how high pass is? And see the white dot there? That's because I'm boosting highs and also using the low pass a little bit to clean them up. If I turn the highs down, that is no longer a white dot. Now it's more of a green dot because it doesn't have as much high frequencies in it. And then when this starts up again, which it's about to, here is what the high pass was doing. This is a lot closer to the native kick. This is the sample. I got just an ordinary 808 kick sample, and I loaded it up in Surge XT and used it as a one-shot to make this. So if I take the ordinary, we do have a little boost on here, but if we take the ordinary 808 kick sample and we start doing stuff with it, we get to, for instance, boost it with the more control, or we can boost its lows, or we can boost its highs. There's that click. We've got the gate and compressor doing stuff, so without that, it gets even closer to just the raw sound. Here's the raw sound. With fader, it turns down a little bit to compensate, or you can do this with it, or even distort it really hard. And of course, crossfade will work too. And then what I was doing with the compressor was heightening the spike on the front of the kick, and let's play with that a little bit and I'll show you how that works. Turn up the compression, and you start getting the compressor kicking in and doing its thing. The compressor is operating before all of this crush stuff and everything. So I'll show you what that does. If we go into crossfade, and here's bass, and if bass is doing this, this is the raw output of bass crush at full crank. Or we can use bass crush to gate, because the hip crush can gate as well. But if we set these up so that crossfade is turned up all the way, these are now doing their job, and the level controls are turned up all the way. Then the compressor will do its thing, but we can also engage gate. And if we speed this stuff up, we now have a gated version. It's acting a little backwards, but that's fine. I'm seeing if I can make this do anything interesting. At this stage, I'm just fooling with stuff, and I'm going to stop this video soon enough, but you caught me in the middle of trying to make this do something interesting. So, the way that the hip crush section is supposed to work in conjunction with this is if you have crossfade turned up all the way, we're supposed to be able to make this cut out. Oh, but instead what it's done is it's waiting for the sound to start again. And so what we have is basically a weird thing. Remember, we started with this. The whole point of Console H is to mess around with it and be able to change things really radically. And this is certainly one way of doing it, is we get to make a weird thing happen. Back to normal styly sounds, still with weird, crazy compression. So here's how you mess with the compressor and gate on the regular sound. Again, we've got it actually turned up really loud. Sure, fine. We're now going to distort it insanely and then do weird things with the gating and stuff. So if we crank up the gating, we have a heavily distorted sound. Let's dial that back a hair. Faster release gets the most action out of the compressor. And then the gate can shut off what the compressor's doing. So we can get that funny click on the front, or I'm going to wait until it starts up again. Here, let's have a hat while we play with it. This is basically where the kick is hitting the compression. So we're getting it to smush the compressor into silence. If the release is really slow, it doesn't bring that after effect up. And then the gating should be able to cut the sound off. And it is. A little too much attack. If we slow the release, we won't have that click on the end of the attack. And then we can throw the clap on, and the synth, and this other thing. And now we're playing fully with a bunch of weird sounds like you might make a beat out of. Or not. Who can say? We can throw in the guitar while we're at it. And let's assume that we're done with the kick for the moment. And we're done with this, and we're done with that, but we're not done with showing off everything about Console H, and I'll tell you why. You can do things like take the master track, stretch it across the top, close these other things off, you can see these various plugins and things. Or we can go back to the rock arrangement. It's a little loud, and we can tell that it's a little loud because on this master bus, we can see that we're distorting the bottom part there, clipping all over the place. This is our bus compressor. It operates a little differently from the regular compressors. So if you defeat it, there's no compression, and if you push it, it gets a little bit weird. So you need to find the rate of swing from the bus compressor to get it to work properly. Advancing it a little bit will make stuff swing in a little faster, and then pulling it back will have stuff swing in a little bit slower. So it doesn't work quite like the channel compressors. This blink is where you're clipping or coming close to clipping, so we can use the master fader to pull everything right down until it'll work fine. And you can see what all of the peakiest peaks are at, and you can see that they are kind of slamming. And then you get to see where you pull it back until everything is... See, you don't have to be clipping with this. If your hottest peaks and the stuff that you're doing is acting in the top 6 dB of the sound, you probably don't need to clip for level. Doesn't matter what the fader is at. And you'll be able to see that you're actively being loud enough when this control is clipping. And then we can mute some of those other things as well. Oh, there's an additional thing. Check this out. I have a reverb. This is the reverb I'm using. And I'm doing an interesting thing with it. See, I wanted to make this be like a sort of crazy 80s sounding thing. You'll notice that I'm doing a little bit with the EQ, like I'm boosting highs. I've got some compression on here, but I'm doing something that is not that easy to see. High pass. What I've done is taken this entire thing, the full mix, and brought in the reverb only in the upper frequencies by using the high pass on ConsoleH channel. Without it, you get this. When you use the high pass on the channel, it acts kind of like a speaker cabinet. So you could go like this, and it sounds a little more like a speaker cabinet. But if you do it on the lows, there's an interesting effect. It's not exactly the same as doing a regular old filter. And so I did that to pull the bass out of the reverb. And then I've also got some compression just to make it a little more exaggerated. I dialed in the attack and release by pushing it a little too hard and then pulled it back out again. And that's what I did to mix it together with the track in order to get my desired 80s-ish kind of sound out of my demo track. And then having done that, you also have a high pass and low pass on the bus. We're looking at the bus, but it's not quite the same. Because the bus is an isolator filter. So that's for if you want to do that type of thing that you hear in electronic dance music a lot. And it'll do the high frequency version of that as well. In fact, it seems to push the compressor extra hard that way, which is interesting to see. And of course you can do main area EQing on the actual bus. probably don't want to, but if you wanted to, you could. And that's how this stuff works. But are we done? No, because there's even more. Remember how Airwindows CONSOLE H let you customize things? Well, if you open up Airwindows Globals, you can change things like user color and user track color and so on. If I hit save on this and go back to here and we open up the guitar track again, oh hey, that's a different shade of gray now, see? You get to pick your own look for what these are meant to look like. If you don't like that, see the guitar track? Let's assign a color to it. Let's call the guitar track red. Now the guitar track's red. Guess what? When we open ConsoleH channel, it is now color-coded because you can tell it to do that in Airwindows Globals text, which sits in your Documents folder in an Airwindows folder inside of the Documents folder. And all you have to do is put this in, and it will do all of that stuff. Maybe you don't want color coding, or you want the subtlest of color coding. We'll set user track color amount to 0.1. And just for laughs, we only like, oh, I hit the wrong thing. We only like blue LEDs. And let's also do an even darker shade, dark gray. Save that. And then when we open this up now, check it out. So our left-right thing is still left and right. But see the different color on the colors for the... Oh, also, the master channel is not color-coded red. And now, neither is the guitar track. And you get to have this sort of shade of gray if you want that, rather than the original color. And you have the colors of the light up LEDs are now in blue, rather than red, because I just told it to. And actually, I can do this while playing. See how I type dark JPEG into user image? Watch this. Hit save. So we're doing this while music is playing. Watch this. We don't need clip only on. Get that out of the way. There you go. Now we have a sort of dark wood grain color. And we've done that while the music was playing. Suppose we don't want that dark wood grain color. Hit save. Yes, you can change the font. Close this. And now we're back. There you have it. So that is Airwindows CONSOLE H. I could go on all day, and I have a video to make, which is this very video, so I can't. But here's hoping this works for you. I've tried to show everything I possibly can. If that's not enough, download it and start using it. The version that you see, here, let me jump back in here for just a bit longer, because tell you what, if I do add effects and then go to VST, turns out, or at least, hang on, give me a second. If you want, you can have this in retro legacy format too. That's what you're seeing right here. If I was to demo this the way I usually demo them, it would have to be this tall, because this is the generic plugin version that doesn't have a GUI, and it is in generic audio unit and VST2. So this might be the version that you use on something like Raspberry Pi. Yes, I'm putting it out compiled for Raspberry Pi. So you can use Airwindows CONSOLE H with or without the big elaborate interface. I like the big elaborate interface. Look, it's so cool. It's so fun. But you don't have to have the big elaborate interface if you don't want to. I'm also making the standalone plugins available too. And you can see that like literally right here. So that's it. If that was a little overwhelming, I apologize, but it was overwhelming to develop as well. I can but try developing it and demoing it as best I can. Point being, it is yours now. ConsoleH is out. And Christmas morning does count as before 2026, so I made good on my promise. I hope you like it. I'm going to have some fun playing with it. I'm also developing Console X2. That's not going to be 2020. I promised Console H would be 2026. And sure enough, it is. And if it's a little bit challenging, if there's anything that goes wrong with it, and I know it's not remembering the size of the windows when you close and reopen the window, I might be working on that early in the new year and figure out a way of doing it. I bet I can. It seems like the sort of thing that one could do. Right now, it doesn't know how to do that, but it should remember the settings. If you find the fader snapping to unreasonable settings, that might simply be if you're doing something like this, and here it is squished to a tiny little area, you may find that you click on the size control and accidentally move the fader to something. In which case, just set it back again. Or you can widen it out like this. Again, it does a whole bunch of different configurations. So you can do a vertical configuration, you can do a horizontal configuration, stuff in the middle, whichever you like, or just move it until it's doing what you need it to do. Here's all of our parameters. Again, I've been talking about those for the last half hour or more. And yeah, there's, I admit, a lot to be learned. But basically, the guts of this are hip crush as 4 bands, dynamics, I think this is dynamics 3, dynamics 2. I think this is actually dynamics 3, and I'll be putting that out as its own standalone. Smooth EQ3, which I will be putting out as its own standalone, but this is the first that you get to use it. And fader and the Console H summing that you get there. And again, the high pass and low pass is essentially the most recent cabinet emulation, except for the version on the bus, which is an isolator filter. So those are slightly different. But the gist of it is you should be able to just start fooling with this. Just play with the controls. Just play with the controls. It'll do all kinds of crazy things, and that's really kind of the point. Because what I was saying in the very beginning, when I said I was going to demo it for you, but it was going to make a bunch of music that just sounded like mine, that's really kind of what it's for, is it's meant to sound like you. And so when I use it, it sounds like me. But that's because I'm doing a lot of things with the high passes and low passes, which act like speaker cabinets. And I'm doing a lot of various things that go to the effect of making it sound like me. I'm using some of the trim and more controls, which throw in a vaguely tapey overdrive onto things. And that has its own qualities. If you turn the more control all the way down, it will not do that. It will leave things crystalline and sharp. It should give you many different tone options rather than just only the ones that I went for. So explore and see what you can get out of it. I don't expect people to take this and make stuff sound as if I would have done it. I expect you to take this and make stuff sound like you would have done it. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.